Hi, I'm Don Lombardi. Welcome to another Drum Channel interview. And I'm very excited to be here with one of my dearest and very best friends, Mr. Gregg Bissonette.
Thank you, Don. We have
you.
been pals since 1982.
That's exactly right. And I remember the phone call I got in 1982.
Let's reenact it.
Okay. Yeah.
Hello, may I speak to Don Lombardi?
Oh, just one moment and I'll get him. I used to use two voices, so it sounded like we were a bigger company than we were. Hold on, I'll get him. This is the answering service.
Oh, okay, I'll hold.
Hi, Greg. How are you doing?
Is this Don Lombardi?
Absolutely.
Don Lombardi, it is such an honor to talk to you. I was just curious. I understand that you are making a double bass drum pedal.
Yes, and if I understand right, you're Gregg Bissonette, and you're on the road with.
I forgot to tell you. Yes, I'm Gregg Bissonette, and I'm a drummer that's going on tour with Maynard Ferguson. And I have had since high school one of those old school Zalmer twin pedals with kind of a spring. And sometimes you hit the left pedal and it goes like Charlie Callis. But I understand you're making a new pedal with DW that's really quick, and you hit the pedal and it goes bonk.
And you said, I want to do clinics at stores while we're out, but I don't have any endorsements. Could I say that I endorse your company? And I said, well, if you're using a pedal, then you definitely endorse the company. It's just that easy, right? I didn't know how that worked.
There you go.
I guess you are.
I am, but I found out that you had a prototype of this first DW double pedal. And I remember the bar, instead of being drum key little
had
screw
cotter
type,
pins in it.
There were cotter pins.
Yeah.
And I thought, this is cool. This is like Don's. Was it the one and only?
Well, we had a few at that point. I think Jim Keltner had tested one a little bit earlier, which completely blew up. You had one of the first working models where we made some changes to it, and it worked.
It worked.
And speaking about the Zellmer twin, we're going back into history here, everybody. But I saw Jim play, and he used that pedal. And
Keltner,
yeah,
twin?
He had one, and I sat in on his kit, and the right pedal felt so bad to me after the Camco. I just said, how can you use this? And he said, well, I only use it very sparingly on certain tunes and things, but there's sometimes I just want to have, it wasn't for chops at all. It was just about the music. There's two different pedals, two different beaters sound different than doubles, just like with your hands.
Yeah.
Right and left sounds different than right.
So he had two different kinds of beaters, one felt and one wood or something?
Well, I did that, but just the idea of having two beaters hitting one drum is going to give you a different sound than having one beater play doubles.
I see what you're saying.
Like that. So, but the light went on in my head. A great drummer like Gregg and like yourself and like Jim, you can't suffer through what you got to put up with for this right pedal. That's your primary pedal.
That's your primary one.
So if you remember the very first ones we made, you could actually put your existing pedal on it.
That's right. You could pop that on.
You could pop that on and screw it down to the plate.
That's right.
Which wasn't even on our agenda to talk about today. But
it wasn't, but that was a cool intro.
Speaking about what you've been doing recently, tell me what life has been like in the last year. I know you're the busiest guy still on the planet somehow.
Thank God, Don, about a year, maybe 2 years before all this lockdown stuff happened, my dear friend, another fellow Italian, Frank Rosato, R-O-S-A-T-O. He has a great studio in Sherman Oaks called Woodcliff Studios, where I would keep a kit all mic'd up, and people would say from around the world, we're in Australia, we're in Germany, wherever, can we send you files and have you play on our songs? And I said, absolutely. Send me the files, send them to Frank. He'll download them, he'll get them ready to go. He's got his little table there with my Sharpies and my notepad. And we would just do these tracks for people. And before we sent them, they'd PayPal or Venmo us the fees, the studio rate, my rate. Well, when lockdown happened, it was the perfect time to not only have them, people from all over the world, even in LA that didn't want to go over their house, go out of their house, send us the files to Frank. He'd download them. I'd come ready to play. I have my own separate room where I could be by myself, and I would Zoom people in. Frank would Zoom them in, and they could watch me play. Then I would go over to where I'd have my chart thing in a separate room, and I'd make charts, and they'd talk to me about it. I'd say, do you like that take? They said, it sounded pretty good, but it's hard to tell over Zoom. Frank would zip them by text, an MP3. of what we just did. And they could listen through his board, Pro Tools. They could hear it. They could listen to the MP3. Maybe on this take 2, go to the washing of the ride cymbal. Maybe you could do something a little bit more ghost notes with the snare. We'd zip them another MP3. They'd listen to it. Let's do a third take of that song, but put in some wild fills, and I'll be able to chop it up and stuff. Okay, on to the next song. I've been spending day after day after day, hour after hour at Frank's studio on my Ringo touring kit, playing and doing sessions, even though I'm the only one in the room.
2 things to talk about you just brought up in my mind.
Yeah.
One, he is a star unto himself, and he's a star with 1 R and 2 R's both.
Oh, thank you, Don.
Speaking of Ringo.
What an honor. Since 2003, I've been playing double drums with Ringo. In 2003, it was Ringo and the Roundheads, the band he uses when he does TV shows, because he always plays on his own albums. But he needs a drummer when he goes up front and sings. So my brother was playing bass, my brother Matt, who also works with Sir Elton John, and he's Sir Richard Starkey. So Matt was in the band, and that was a really fun band, Ringo and the Roundheads. And then in 2008, I got with Ringo Starr and his All-Star Band. So 13 years in Ringo Starr and his All-Star Band, and 18 years of playing double drums with them, going back to Ringo and the Roundheads. So we've done so many incarnations of Ringo Starr and his All-Star Band. The 30th anniversary book just came out, because he started the All-Star Band in 1989. So 30 years.
And a hidden compliment behind that story, at the very beginning, Ringo and his All-Star Band actually had various drummers go out as they went out with different tours, until he hit with Gregg on one tour, and the light went on, I'm sure, in his head. This is the guy I want to play with now.
What an honor.
You were the guy for him. And I think, your ability to nail in, talk a little bit about his time feel and what you had to do to adapt to it or to...
Well, he's the drummer. Ringo's the drummer more than any other drummer. And I've got a lot of heroes. Buddy Rich, Danny Serafin, John Bonham, Mitch Mitchell, the list goes on and on and on. But the one drummer that I've listened to and jammed along with the most with headphones is Ringo. My favorite drummer in my favorite band, the greatest band that ever was and ever will be. I think all those great songs and his solo stuff. So I've been playing along with him so much that when he was this far away, all I did was I said, I'm going to stare at his snare drum. And I got a clear shot of his bass drum foot. So I'm just looking at him the whole time. And when his snare hits, I want my snare to hit. He's the alpha dog. I'm in there to complement Ringo, but I want to get into his groove, into his feel, his pocket. So I'm staring at the snare and the kick the whole time. And we even start doing some things like this. Don will be moving, because he kind of throws his right shoulder into the bass drum. So boom, ba, boom, ba, boom, boom. And we'll be finding ourselves rocking like this. We'll play certain songs. If we're going to lay it back in here, we'll kind of do this. And I just make faces all the time because I'm so excited. I'm going, ah, ah. And he'll get me laughing by going, and doing that great movement on the hi-hat. Ah. And Jeff Chonis, our drum tech, will go, ah, there's that hi-hat. He's swinging the hi-hat, And it's just so great because on verses, I've noticed, sometimes he'll play in the middle of the snare with the stick on the verse, but he'll get that rim shot on the chorus, and then he'll go back to the middle on the verse. He plays so dynamically, just knocking it down a hair for the verse, bringing it up for the B section, bringing it up more for the chorus. One of the first times I ever had the guts to play one of my favorite Ringo grooves, Tomorrow Never Knows. And he comes out of his dressing room and we're playing, and I'm doing this, and I have my DW and LP tambourine pedal, so I'm going, and he sits on his drums. Nobody's ever seen Ringo play Tomorrow Never Knows. They stopped touring by that time. So he sits down and his right hand never leaves the washing crash cymbal. And with his left hand, his left hand is so strong, so fast, so consistent that I was going, because I could make that tom-tom speak better. He's going, and it's speaking like crazy. And I said, you never take your right hand off the crash cymbal. You're playing that with the left. And he says, why wouldn't I? I'm left-handed. He said, when you do that, you lose the crash for a second. Why? Why would you do that? And it just makes so much sense. His playing makes so much sense. It's always right for the song. Don, it's just a dream come true to be side by side playing drums with him. Every night I'm just going, I can't believe I'm here.
Only other drummer that I think really conquered that was our dear friend Jim Keltner, the Bangladesh concert, the first time I saw. And that was the most impressive thing about that was how it was just that one concert, how he immediately dialed in to just what you're talking about. There was no flamming going on. By that I mean if you're playing with more than one drummer and you're playing backbeats and you're not locking in together, you'll hear both your rim shots come as a little bit of a flam. But to dial it in just the way you did is amazing. But I've got to ask you another question. When he plays the ride cymbal or the hi-hat, with the swishy, what we call the little swishy motion, I have a philosophy that there's more involved in that than meets the eye, and I talked to Hal Blaine about that a little bit. And he will actually, if you see some of the pictures of Hal, sometimes he does that also a little bit. I think there's a certain swing that brings into that because as opposed to the normal outside upstroke,
right.
We call it here at Drum Channel, or sometimes called the Moeller method,
right.
where 1 and 3 are almost pretty close to the same sound, unless
right.
you're really hitting in different parts of the stick.
Right.
There's a little bit more of an emphasis between 1 and 3, always 2 and 4, when you're doing the motion this way. Is that part of the English vibe, you think? What do you think that does to it?
Well, my take is on that, and Ringo doesn't play like this much anymore. He's kind of playing kind of normal, but when he knows Jeff Jonas and I are looking at his hi-hat, he'll do that for us. But sometimes I'll watch his ride cymbal, and he's got the loosest, coolest, beautiful feel on that ride, but sometimes it'll move a little bit, and he always has a swing.
Yeah.
There's never a straight up and down stiff feel. Everything swings. That hi-hat, even if it's like this, normal up and down, it's swinging. But I think his favorite drummer of all time, listening to on records, is probably, from what I hear from him talking, Cozy Cole. He would say, Cozy Cole as I live and breathe, and I'd get my trumpet out and we'd play Topsy. And he just loves that swing. He's also a fan of Gene Krupa too. But I'll tell you, that Cozy Cole kind of swing, he always says, I love deep, low toms, And that Cozy Cole Topsy, I think, has a lot to do with his
That's the song that Cozy Cole played. You should look that up, YouTube that, Topsy.
Yeah, YouTube Cozy Cole Topsy.
Listen to close your eyes without seeing it and listen to it.
Yeah.
Big fan of that. Just hear it.
Yeah.
And then kind of transpose some of the Beatle feel to that. I've done that, and it really, what you're saying is so dead on.
And listen to his 1 8-bar drum solo with the kick on all. He's not going. He's going. And he's kind of tongue-in-cheek in this drum solo, but it's very swingy, and it's right in tempo. It's so great.
Several years after our original call, I got another call from this gentleman, and you had just brought the subject up, your tambourine pedal. Let's show a little bit of that while we're talking here. This is how Gregg's playing with his left foot the tambourine pedal. And there had been a lot of tambourine pedals that had been invented through the years where the beater ball hit a tambourine and made it a tambourine sound, but never where the tambourine actually moved and made a sound.
Yeah.
So I get a call, and it's like, Don, I need a tambourine pedal where I can get it to go chicka, 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 chicka. So I'm thinking, okay. He said, yeah, we're going out with Ringo, and there was no percussionist, right?
Well, Mark Rivera was playing percussion, but Mark Rivera also is a really amazing musical director and super high tenor for the high parts, and he's playing sax, tenor and soprano. Then he's playing some keyboard parts, so he can't, and he's playing some congas, right? So he can't always be playing the tambourine, and some of these songs really needed that feel. So together,
Yeah.
Here we go.
That's how we got it.
That's how we got it. So I could just be playing, and sometimes I'll be playing it in the beginning when I had it, I think on the second tour, I'd be playing and Ringo would look over at Mark and Mark's not shaking it. And he says, I was wondering where the tambourine was coming from. It's you. So great.
How you doing that, huh?
How you doing that?
You also mentioned something in passing, which I know you think is really, really important for young drummers out there to learn. And you said that you transcribed quickly some things when people send you different tracks that they want you to send back to them.
Absolutely.
The importance of transcribing. In fact, that's a big part of your course, the Gregg Bissonette Drum School.
Yeah, we talk a lot about transcribing on the spot. One of the ways I got the David Lee Roth job was I was gig for 7 years, is I was doing an audition, and it was Billy Sheehan, he was picked first, then Steve Vai, and then they kind of picked me, and then David Lee Roth gave me the thumbs up and said, okay, cool. But I was in the audition thing, and Steve Vai, who had played with the great Chad Wackerman and Vinnie Colaiuta with Frank Zappa, he's throwing me out all these figures, and I'm writing them down with a Sharpie on a Remo-coated head, and he goes, man, you can transcribe stuff. I said, yeah. He said, where'd you go to school? I said, North Texas State. He said, I went to Berkeley. I said, I know. I saw you play at the Club Lingerie a couple weeks ago. I'm a big fan of yours, Steve. He said, this is going to be great. If you can transcribe stuff, great, great. So he said, tomorrow, we're going to play for Dave. And I said, do you have any cassettes of any of the songs? I got about 12 cassettes of songs we've been working on. And I wrote out charts, put them on my cowbell. And Dave came in, he goes, I've been listening to you guys practice all these songs. How'd you learn them all so fast? I said, well, I made little notes. He goes, you read music? And you can write down stuff? I said, yeah, transcribing drum parts, making form charts. He said, who was your last gig? I said, oh man, this isn't gonna go well. I'm gonna tell him Maynard Ferguson Big Band. He's gonna think, oh, he's just a jazz guy. He can't play rock. I said, Maynard Ferguson. And Dave is such a really great musicologist. He said, Maynard Ferguson, the high note trumpet player that covered theme from Rocky and Herbie Hancock's Chameleon? I said, yeah. He goes, if you can power that big band, you can power the four of us. Payday starts Friday. Let's go get some Mexican food. All right. And as we're in the cool lowrider car convertible, he puts on, speaking of Hal Blaine playing Frank Sinatra's That's Life with the big band. That's life. Ba-ba. He goes, I bet you could play this, couldn't you? I said, you bet. And we did it on the first album, Eat 'Em and Smile. One other David Lee Roth, Don Lombardi story. I called Don, I said, Don, my EP1 trigger bass drum pedals that Don invented, that go on a little rubber cork.
It's an electronic trigger pedal.
Electronic trigger pedal. EP1 electronic pedal. I said, the shafts on the pedal keep snapping. Can you help me? And he goes, let me come out and check it out. So he comes to one of our shows. I'm literally standing up like this, playing. And I'm just jumping on that pedal. And I stand up and I jump and I come down. And this poor pedal is going, thump, with all the weight of my body jumping up. Bam! He goes, no wonder you're snapping these beater rods. You're jumping on them from up here.
Well, I think the show I saw, first time I saw him do it, I think you actually jumped from your seat, standing on his seat, down onto the foot pedal. And I'm like, well, I want to make this stuff so it works for anybody under any circumstance. And that just made me raise the game to another level.
And you did. For some reason, the next batch I got didn't snap. If you want to see something cool, David Lee Roth had the idea of me playing a drum solo, standing up on my drums. And I thought, how am I going to do that? And my great drum tech, Andre McDougall, he put one of those Buddy Rich type of thrones that you could open at the top and put the hardware in. He drills in, he bolts that there. So I stand up on that throne, put the other foot on the bass drum. He had that surfer grip tape because the bass drums were 24 by 36, I think, 32, two 16s put together. So anyway, he's got surf grip tape. Speaking of wipeout earlier, we didn't wipe out because he had that grip tape. So I'm playing this drum solo, standing on my drums, and like Don said, I would jump down from on top of the drums. But YouTube, Gregg Bissonette drum solo, David Lee Roth, and you will see this drum solo standing on my drums, and you rose to the challenge, Don.
In fact, you don't have to do that because we're going to show you a little bit of it right now. Memories, huh? What year?
85.
Whoa.
86 when we actually hit the road. But 85 when I got the gig, we did the album, we went on the road, and you came out and saw me jumping on those EP1 pedals.
Now, the secret life of Gregg Bissonette. How did this come to be? That's a question I kind of have. I've got something that I'll play for you all out there, and you haven't seen this yet either. This is the first time you've seen it, so I want to get your reaction to it also. Gregg found himself in a situation where, well, this is a little clip from when we were together with the Thousand Oaks Drum Club, but you know me, I put my 2 cents worth into things every once in a while, so let me show this to you.
Okay.
Check this out.
Hey, Don, can you hear me talking okay now?
Yeah, you sound like the guy on the TV commercial, though. Can you work on that?
I don't know, man. That's in my blood now. I can only do this from Morongo casinos.
Do you know the script? I have the most recent.
It's really hard, Don. It's really hard. You say, good times, Morongo. There's so much to do at Morongo. Good times never seem to fail. Join Don Lombardi and the Thousand Oaks Drum Club.
A weekend at Morongo never goes out of style. It's a weekend of sweet accommodation, a weekend to settle down, and a weekend to live it up. It's a weekend to swim and splash in the Oasis pool or sip and snuggle in a cabana. It's a weekend for the ages. Morongo, good times anytime. I can't believe you found that.
You sound like the guy on the commercial. I can't believe it's the exact same sounding voice and everything.
How could that be?
How could it possibly be?
Well, let me tell you how it went down. First of all, thanks for finding that on YouTube. I was playing a big band bebop session for a great friend of mine, Mike Eckhart, a great producer, great musician, great composer. And it was for a casino, Morongo Casinos out in the desert.
I didn't know that. That's what the music session was for, the casino.
Yeah, the big band music.
So you played on that track also?
I played on the track. It was at the Village in Santa Monica on Butler there, where I've done a million sessions. The Spinal Tap album we did there. Anyway, so this is the second Spinal Tap album, Back from the Dead, with C.J. Vanston, the great composer, keyboard player, pal of mine that got me the gig with Spinal Tap. Done a million albums at the Village. That's where Steve Gadd recorded Asia. So we're recording in there, the big room, and Wayne Bergeron, this great trumpet player, he says, hey, Gregg, you still doing the Winnie the Pooh voiceover stuff? And I said, sometimes, I get to sub for Jim Cummings, great voiceover guy. I said, I get to do some stuff for the Winnie the Pooh stuff for my pals at Disney. Anyway, so he says, yeah, that's cool, man. And then Mike Eckhart tells the guy from Morongo, and he goes, you do voiceovers? And I'm just getting my bag ready to leave, And I said, yeah, I do voiceovers. And he goes, why don't you knock it down about an octave down and do kind of like a Rat Pack, Tony Bennett kind of thing, like, hey, good times, Morongo. There's so much to do at Morongo. Good times never seem to end. So I had just played drums, and over that track, they give me a script, and I go, let's give it a try. So I did it, and they said, great. So I've done countless commercials for Morongo because of that trumpet player, Wayne Bergeron, saying, hey, Gregg, you still doing the Winnie the Pooh stuff? It's crazy how it works.
And how did you get the Winnie the Pooh? Let's back up to that.
Well, that was another session. My brother's playing upright bass, and I'm playing drums on the end of Finding Nemo out in Glendale at Igloo Studios. And Rick Dempsey, the senior VP of character voices, is producing the session, and we're doing a remake of Bobby Darin's Somewhere Beyond the Sea. And it's my chart was written, it looked like it was written by like a third grader. I don't know who made that chart, but I said, hey, Matt, to my brother, he's playing upright. I said, I don't have a double DS or a double coda. Do you? And all of a sudden I hear this voice, come on in, there's a control room, drummer. So I bring my chart, I'm gonna show them. I don't have a double DS, I don't have a double coda. If you know what DS is, dal segno, it's all in Italian. Go back to the sign. Coda, take the coda. Well, there was supposed to be a double DS and a double coda. So I bring my chart in, and Rick Dempsey goes, no, forget about the chart. Say that again. I said, I don't have a double DS or a... He goes, you have that rasp that, like the original Winnie the Pooh, Sterling Holloway. Walt Disney picked him to be Winnie the Pooh in 1968, I believe, for Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. Anyway, he said, I want you to really get into this and think about this, because we need a backup Winnie the Pooh sometimes. So I just worked, took a ton of acting classes, read The Tao of Pooh. There's a book called The Tao of Pooh. And it's one thing to parrot someone's voice, but it's another thing to really get inside the voice. And that's what that's what got me into doing voiceovers and stuff. So I still take acting classes. I work on different voices. I've even done a couple Cartoon Network things where it's that voice like, "Hey, where you going with that thing over there? Come here, get over here." I just love doing different voices. So drumming and voices kind of goes hand in hand. You know, you're working on copping a lick off a vocabulary thing. It's the same thing with copping a voice or getting into the headspace. I started watching these Dawes Butler acting videos on YouTube where he would be a short guy, but he would be doing Yogi Bear. He's supposed to be this like 8-foot tall bear. And he'd say, if you look the part, you can sound the part. So he'd put his hands, hey, boo-boo, how about it, picnic basket? He's this big bear, but he's a real short guy. He would do Elroy on the Jetsons. Hey, you know, that's boo-boo. Hey, Yogi. I don't know Elroy's voice that well, but he would do all these voices, and he would try to look the part. If you can look the part, you can sound the part.
If Winnie the Pooh were to tell drummers to play their paradiddles, how would he do
He would
that?
probably, because he's a bear of, little brain, he'd probably have a hard time with the whole paradiddle concept. He'd say, paradiddle? What the heck is a paradiddle? And then he could write out, where's my paradiddle shirt?
What would he sound like?
He'd probably sound like, paradiddle? Oh, bother. But the idea of right, left, left, right, left. I should have worn my drum channel, Gregg Bissonette Drum School paradiddle shirts that we had.
You just have to come back, and now we got to do it all
We
over
got to
again.
reshoot the whole thing with the
thing.
paradiddle shirts.
I can't thank you enough for joining me today.
Don, I can't thank you enough for
sit
being
here
my
and
friend.
talk forever, and we're going to come back and talk forever and do much, much more too.
I cannot wait.
Check out everything that we have on Drum Channel, which includes the very, very important Gregg Bissonette Drum School, where you will learn.
You will learn classic drum beats and so many different, not just rock, but jazz. You'll learn Take 5, Joe Morello, Sing, 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 Gene Krupa, Mitch Mitchell, Manic Depression, Jimi Hendrix, own Mitch Mitchell playing those songs, and me telling some stories about when I played double drums with Mitch on that song at one of my drum clinics. You'll hear In My Life and Come Together, my favorite drummer ever, Ringo Starr, my impression of those. Just all kinds of different grooves and beats and different styles. Vocabulary, the big concept of my school is vocabulary. Different beats and fills in every style imaginable. It's never been my goal to be the best drummer at any one style. It's always my goal to be the best drummer I can be at every style I can think of. And I give a lot of lessons, but I take a lot of lessons. I watch the Drum Channel shows on people explaining things and breaking things down in the interviews. There's no place like Drum Channel. Dorothy said there's no place like home. I say, speaking of Toto, I say there's no place like DC, the Drum Channel. So we've got vocabulary, we've got the classic drum grooves, we've got song form, transcribing, so incredibly important. Sometimes you can know every beat and every fill known to man, but if somebody gives you a legal pad and a Sharpie and says, hey, we're going to do this song, chart it out, a lot of people freeze. I love making charts so I can go in and play it 1, 2, 3 takes, and I don't like making mistakes, so I want to know the form. We talk about song form. Imagine trying to speak or give a speech if you know 20 words. You need to know thousands of words. You don't think about it, but we're not thinking about what we're saying right now. We're just talking. That's the way it has to be with your drumming vocabulary. So you're not thinking, what fill do I play? What's this beat? You just play. You play from your heart. You don't have to think about it. It's like talking. It's just second nature, vocabulary.
And on Drum Channel, we have lessons that will show you how to use your body to get the facility, the technique lessons that we have. I always say it's how to play, what to play, and why you play it are the keys.
Yeah.
But however much technique you might have is going to be depending on how much time you have and how devoted you are and how important that is to your musical life. But it's the vocabulary that's going to get you the gig. Have you ever gone to an audition and they sat down and said, let me see how fast you play your paradiddle?
Never.
No.
They don't know what paradiddles are most of the time. The David Lee Roth audition, I decided to play Hat for Teacher for Billy Sheehan and Steve Vai because it was one of my favorite songs. And they said, wow, you could play Hat for Teacher. We'll probably do that on the road. But as far as paradiddles, or let me hear your fastest single stroke roll, not really.
That gives you the facility so you can have a conversation.
So you can have a conversation.
Somehow along the line, we had to learn how to talk the English.
Tocchi di English,
Hey.
Lombardi.
Hey.
Ho capito perfettamente. Fantastico. Che bravo ragazzo.
Same to him. Thank you, Greg, so much.
Thank you, Don.
Love you. We're going to see you real soon. Lots more
you.
happening. This is your home away from home.
My home away from a home.
Yeah.
I want to be Italian. Bissonette.
You got it. We'll see you next time.
Ciao. Ciao, Kumpa. Arrivederci.